I'm making a meat lover's quiche because we both love meat, we both love eggs, and we both love cheese. So I have one store-bought pie crust. I'm just gonna mold my crust down into the pan. Now I have some pie weights here and parchment paper. I like to par-bake my crust first because if I was just to put the eggs and the meat in there right now, that crust wouldn't bake. So I have to bake it first in the oven. The pie weights help the crust stay nice and intact inside the dish. Otherwise, it'll just puff up when you put it in the oven. So while that goes, I'm gonna get started on my meat. I have 4 slices of bacon here. I'm gonna render it on down. I'm flipping my bacon. While that side cooks, let me take my pie crust out of the oven and take those weights off. Smells good already. I'm gonna pop this back in the oven and let it cook and brown for about 5 more minutes. I think my bacon should be done. I'm not gonna empty this pan. I'm gonna add my country sausage right to the rendered fat from the bacon. Country sausage is basically ground pork with spices and salt and pepper and garlic. I'm just gonna cook this until the meat turns brown and there's no more pink pieces of meat. Before I take this off the heat, let me grab my pie crust. That's done. Grab my bacon and my spoon. Now I'm gonna build this quiche. I'm gonna cut up some green onions. I have 6 eggs here. I'm gonna add a half a cup of half and half. If you don't have half and half, you can use whole milk. That half and half is gonna get it really nice and fluffy. I'm gonna do a heavy pinch of my house seasoning. Got sweet paprika, onion powder, garlic powder, salt, pepper. I'm gonna add my green onion as well. Give it a whisk. Now I'm gonna grate 4 ounces of white cheddar. And I love using cheddar cheese because it goes really well with the saltiness of all my breakfast sausages. I'm gonna put it right into my egg and green onion mixture. I'm gonna give it another whisk. All right, let's build. I'm gonna put my country ham down, which is basically just smoked ham. Got my strips of bacon here, I'm gonna crumble up. Last but not least, my country breakfast sausage. It smells really good, my stomach is growling. Now, just pour the egg and cheese mixture right on top. And this is gonna be incredible. I'm gonna pop this in there and let it cook for about 20 to 25 minutes or until the eggs are set. I think my meat lover's quiche is ready to come out of the oven. I can tell it's gonna be nice and cheesy and look at the brown on the crust. That's my favorite part of the quiche, the cheese and the crust.
I'm making my churro pancakes with sweet milk glaze. They combine elements of Mexican churros in pancake form. I just make a batter, griddle it in butter, finish it with icing, no syrup required. To get started, I'll combine my dry ingredients. In my bowl here, I'll add 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1/4 cup of sugar. These are gonna be extra sweet. 3/4 of a teaspoon of kosher salt. And then I'll make these pancakes extra fluffy with 1 teaspoon of baking powder and 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. So I'll grab my spices now. I've got cinnamon and nutmeg. Cinnamon is the signature flavor of churros. I'll add 1 teaspoon. And then I'm gonna grate in some fresh nutmeg. I'll whisk to combine. All right, my dry ingredients are combined, and now I'll mix up my wet ingredients. I've got 2 eggs and buttermilk. You've gotta have buttermilk in pancakes. It adds that great tanginess. I'll measure out 1 3/4 cup of buttermilk. And I'll keep this standing by for my glaze. 2 eggs. 3 tablespoons of melted butter, which I've allowed to cool slightly. And this will help keep the pancakes moist. And a teaspoon of vanilla extract will complement the cinnamon really nicely. I'll whisk this up. Buttermilk smells a good smell. I'll add the wet to the dry and mix until just combined. I don't want to overmix and create a gummy pancake. I love the speckles of cinnamon in the batter. So beautiful. My batter's combined. There are still a few lumps, which is what I want. It's what I'm looking for. And now I'm ready to cook up these pancakes. The key to next level pancakes is not skimping on the butter. So a layer of butter in between each batch of pancakes will yield that golden, crispy edge and more butter flavor. Love that sizzle. And now I'll portion in scoops of the batter and give them enough space on all sides so that they can get cooked evenly and become their best circular selves. I'll let these cook until they're browned on the bottom and the bubbles rise to the top and pop, and then I'll know that they're ready to flip, and then I'll cook them until brown on the other side. And in the meantime, I'm going to bask in this smell, melted butter and pancake batter, the smell of brunch. Yes! Look at that golden brown edge. This is a perfect pancake. I'll flip the rest of these and then let them go for another minute on the other side. That's a good one too. 2 for 2 and 3 for 3. Yes. These are ready to come off. They're so fluffy. And just like a churro, I'm gonna sprinkle these with cinnamon sugar. Okay, I'm gonna keep on pancaking. These pancakes look phenomenal, but I'm gonna make them even better with a sweet milk glaze. This is a really simple glaze. I'll add 1.5 cups of powdered sugar to my bowl, a pinch of salt, 2 tablespoons of buttermilk, and you can use regular milk here, but I figured there's buttermilk in the pancakes. Add an extra tang to the icing. A splash of vanilla for more flavor, and then I'll whisk it until it's smooth. I want a glaze that's thick but pourable. If it's too thin, add more powdered sugar, and if it's too thick, add a little more milk. This is perfect. I'll serve this tableside so that my friends can drizzle, but I want to taste it first. Oh, that's a fluffy pancake. I'm gonna do a dunk. The combination of the fluffy pancake with the crunchy sugar and that tangy sweet glaze is outstanding. Oh, and that cinnamon is really coming through. My friends are gonna go crazy over these.
Easy strawberry and raspberry Danish.
All right.
Now, they sell croissant dough. Usually you can get it with the perforations, but they also now just sell it in a sheet.
Wow.
Okay, so if you could please come over here. You might not even know how to roll it out. So look, you see that lip right there?
Yeah.
You're gonna roll it towards you and you see these little perforations?
Yeah.
Just pinch out the perforations to make sure when we roll this up, it doesn't come apart, okay? Now, the next ingredient is going to be some freeze-dried fruit. And then just pound it out, you know? All right, so that's all you've got to do, and I'll show you what it's going to look like. You're going to get little bits of sand, some small pebbles, and every once in a while you're going to get something that didn't quite get crushed completely, and that's okay. It's giving it personality, okay? Now, over the top, just take some of that pounded, freeze-dried fruit all over the place. This is the most amazing hack. So this brown sugar is gonna help rehydrate, and then a little granulated sugar. Okay, so this is a life hack. I do this a lot when I need like little tiny bits of butter, just kind of grate it over the top.
That's so smart.
That wrapper on as a handle?
Yeah, so then now the game is just to roll it up. If you start this cold, it's very easy to roll up. You won't have to worry about any flour or anything like that. Tightly. Yeah.
Wow. Beautiful.
I mean.
Nice tight roll. And then literally just, we're gonna make 8 out of this. So just kind of go in half and half.
Good.
I've got an 8x8 right here that's just been cooking sprayed down on the bottom and the sides. I've got the oven set at 375. Just about 15 minutes after that.
Snap, grapple, boom.
Done. Now, you know what we always like is a little bit of a glaze over the top.
Glaze it up.
So very simply, you're just gonna get some powdered sugar. Gonna add in a little bit of this dust. And then if you have some lemon juice, some water, some orange juice, even a little bit of milk or heavy cream, that's all you need. A tiny pinch of salt as well is nice. And there you have it.
We're gonna make a French toast. Usually French toast, you know what it looks like. It's got cinnamon, it's got this nice sweet custard, it's got some maple syrup, it probably has some kind of fruits, maybe some blueberries, maybe some bananas, who knows what it has. Not today, we're making a savory French toast. Our French toast is gonna have some bacon, some Gruyere cheese, we're gonna have some mustard, some creme fraiche, some mustard greens, very, very savory, but still an amazing dish of French toast. We're gonna start by cooking some hickory smoked bacon. Bacon is good for brunch. I know you already knew that, but I'm just gonna let you know it again. Gotta have some bacon. Smells good in here already. That smokiness is incredible. Now, what we're gonna do is actually let the bacon cook, and we'll keep the bacon fat, and we'll cook some other things in the bacon fat. So we're gonna let that go. While the bacon is cooking, we're gonna put together sort of like our condiment. This is actually gonna be creme fraiche, Dijon mustard, and a little bit of hot sauce. Well, you get a little creaminess there, a little bit of spiciness, two kinds of spiciness, from the mustard and from the hot sauce. And this is gonna be our condiment for our French toast. All right, so now we're gonna make the custard that we're gonna actually soak the bread in. So it's gonna be 3 eggs and an egg yolk. The extra yolk is for a little richness. Very rich custard for this French toast, savory or not. And then some half and half. Some grated Parmesan Reggiano, good quality cheese. And this is gonna give a little saltiness to the French toast, but also it's gonna actually help to make the bread golden brown when we're actually cooking it in the pan. Let's flip our bacon. Nice and crispy. I think bacon just always has to be crispy. All right, so we have our condiment, our creme fraiche, our Dijon mustard. This is our custard for our French toast. And we're gonna get our bacon out of the pan. We're gonna keep that beautiful bacon fat. Let's get a red onion going. And we're gonna cook the red onions with some mustard greens. Mustard greens, that's what they taste like. They taste like mustard. They do have that sort of mustardy flavor. They're a little bit hearty. And, you know, I think of them as really good with things that are smoky, like bacon, for instance, and things that are rich, like some eggs. So I think the mustard greens are gonna be a really nice foil for this savory dish, this savory French toast. So I'm gonna toss the red onions right into the bacon fat. Here are the mustard greens. And they're very leafy, so I'm just gonna drop them in here, and they should really just kind of wilt. You can think about mustard greens as like kale with a mustard flavor. That's sort of the texture of what mustard greens are. Just a splash of cider vinegar. Well, we want a little acidity in here to go with the mustard and the onion. Just gonna wilt them down. Just a little splash of honey there. Where there's mustard, there must be honey. So we have our mustard greens and red onions, cooked in our bacon fat with the cider vinegar. All right, so now we have all of our components ready to go. Except, of course, for our bread. So I have a pain de mie, which is basically a fancy French phrase for good quality white bread. We're gonna start by smearing a little bit of Dijon mustard and creme fraiche and the hot sauce mixture to give the bread a little bit of moisture and also flavor, for sure. And then a couple of pieces of cheese, some Gruyere cheese. It's a Swiss cheese. And I like putting it on both sides so that it melts on both sides, and then as it melts, it kind of holds all the other ingredients in the middle together. and then some crispy bacon. And you can let the bacon sort of fall out the end a little bit. Nobody will be complaining about that. Then we have our mustard greens with our red onions and a little bit of cider vinegar. And if you notice, I'm actually going all the way to the edges, so it's not just in the middle. And we're gonna close this bad boy up. Let's press it down a little bit, and then we're gonna soak it for about 30 seconds on each side so that the custard actually goes, through the bread itself. All right, so we're gonna turn this over and let the other side soak. And don't forget, we also have the Parmesan cheese running through the custard, so the cheese, while it cooks, will get a little bit gratined, it will brown a little bit on the outside. That's what we want. So we're gonna take a little canola oil and just a little bit of butter. I'm gonna put our sandwich, our French toast, right in there. So, here's the key. You want the custard to cook inside the bread, and at the same time, you want all the other ingredients to kind of warm through. They're all cooked already, but we just need the cheese to melt a little bit. I can actually smell, can you smell the Parmesan cheese there? I know you can. You can smell the Parmesan cheese. It's starting to get nice and crusty on the bottom side there. You're gonna be very happy with this. Let's say we go out to brunch. There's 4 people at the table. I like to order usually maybe like a savory egg dish for my main course, but I always want something sweet on the table. And I always say like the table's hungry too, so let's feed the table. So I'll order some sort of waffle or pancake or French toast dish usually, and we just put it in the middle of the table, and everybody gets a fork and gets a little bit of that sweetness. And I think that's a good way to go. Gonna flip this over. Beautiful. Gorgeous. Making the savory French toast, you have to pay attention to every single component if you want to make it great. Amazing. Let's give it a taste. Really strong, robust flavors. Smoked bacon, that sort of spicy mustard green. And then the Gruyere cheese, just a little sharp, but melts really, really nicely. Kind of brings it all together. Chicken and waffles. The classic is the fried chicken, with skin on, bone in, fried on top of the waffles. But I kind of like the idea, and this is not always the case, I kind of like the idea of chicken tenders for this, because this way you don't have to mess with the bones, right? You have lovely fried chicken tenders, it's all white meat, and then you can eat it with the waffle. We're going to take our chicken tenders and let it marinate or tenderize with some buttermilk. And that's one of the things that buttermilk does. It tenderizes meats. It obviously gives it a little bit of that sort of tangy flavor as well. It's also going to promote a nice juicy chicken. So we're just gonna let this marinate for about 30 minutes or so. And these are gonna be pretty tender anyway. I mean, hence the name, chicken tenders. Chicken and waffles, how did that come up? Now, what I was told is that chicken and waffles was invented in Harlem, in New York City, by the jazz singers. They'd play very, very late at night, and then, of course, there was a cocktail or two after they played. And so now it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. They can't figure out whether they want something, really savory, kind of like a late dinner like fried chicken, or maybe it's already breakfast time and some waffles. So why make a decision when you can have them both? And so they made chicken and waffles, and it was served with maple syrup and butter and some hot sauce. And chicken and waffles is a very New York, actually, specifically, it's a Harlem dish. Okay, so we're just gonna pour some buttermilk over the chicken tenders. I'm gonna let this sit out room temperature. I was always taught early on when I was cooking that when you're marinating something, it actually picks up more of the flavor if it stays at room temperature than you put it in the refrigerator. Otherwise, it actually stops the flavor from really kind of picking up in the protein, especially because it's only gonna be 30 minutes or so. No safety issues whatsoever. Now we're gonna move on to our waffle mixture. I have a classic buttermilk waffle recipe that I use. 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour. If you want to, you can put things like berries and chocolate chips or maybe some black pepper. You can certainly flavor these waffles. 2 teaspoons of baking powder. 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. And then a little bit of salt. 3 tablespoons of sugar. All right, those are our dry ingredients. Then we need 3 eggs. little bit of melted unsalted butter, and 1.5 cups of buttermilk. I find that buttermilk, first of all, you taste a little bit of that sort of tang running through the buttermilk, but also it makes a very, very tender waffle. Okay. So we have all our ingredients, and then I'm just going to fold in the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients, and then we'll have our waffle batter. We're gonna let the waffle batter sit for 30 minutes or so as well. We can start frying our chicken and making our waffles. Chicken and waffle. Well, of course, there's Melba's up in Harlem. There's Roscoe's in LA, all the locations. They're very busy. I think that's probably the most famous place in Los Angeles, Roscoe's for sure. I love Melba's in Harlem. She does actually an eggnog waffle, which I think is a really cool idea. She beat me in throwdown with it. She broke out the eggnog, and we just left the building. That was the end. Okay, so we have our waffle recipe. We have our chicken marinating in the buttermilk. And I like to dip my chicken twice into the seasoned flour. So we're going to make basically 2 dredges of the flour mixture. Obviously, we're gonna start with all-purpose flour. And then we're gonna season it. A little bit of cayenne, whoops. A little bit of garlic powder and some onion powder and salt and pepper. I have a burger place called Bobby's Burger Palace, and I just changed the onion rings from beer batter onion rings to buttermilk onion rings. Works really nicely. But one of the things that I like to do is actually batter the onions first and then put them in the refrigerator and let them set with the crust. And then when somebody has an order, dredge them one more time into the flour and put them into the oil. And it actually makes them really crispy. All right, so then we're going to take some buttermilk. We need a wet dredge and a dry dredge. Man, we got a lot of buttermilk today. And then some hot sauce for some flavor. And if you notice, I season every layer, no matter what it is. Salt and pepper. And we're gonna start by putting the chicken in the flour, then back into the buttermilk, and then back into the flour. I mean, you can put all kinds of different seasonings in here if you want. To me, the most important thing is that it actually has, seasoning and it's flavored. Because otherwise, you're gonna get some bland chicken. All right, so we're just gonna put that right there, and we're just gonna go right back here, okay? Chicken into the flour mixture, into the buttermilk, back into the flour. You're gonna get a nice, crispy crust. I double dredge almost all the time. I think it's nice, because let's face it, people, when they order fried chicken, they want that crispy crust on the outside. And the key to actually cooking fried chicken accurately is the temperature of the oil. We have canola oil here heating up about 350 degrees, and that will ensure that the chicken cooks through, and at the same time, the crust cooks and gets nice and golden brown. I mean, if it's too hot, what's gonna happen? You might get a golden brown crust, but it might be raw inside. If it's not hot enough, you're not gonna get a crispiness on the outside, and it actually could get really greasy. All right, so the temperature is at 380, so I'm just gonna take a little oil out and put a little bit of the cooler oil in. All right, here we go. This is just the white meat. There's no skin on it. There's no bones in it, and they're not that thick, so this is gonna cook pretty quickly. When these get golden, they're done. So while those are cooking, let's get our waffles going. I wanna make sure that our waffle iron is on high, and we're gonna paint these with a little bit of butter. All right, so I'm gonna just get a rack out here for this. These chicken tenders, they're gonna get cooked through, no question about it. So we just wanna make sure that the oil is hot enough so they get golden brown. I've seen people batter with cornflakes, with potato chips, graham crackers, tempura fried rice flour batter. I like doing that sometimes. All right, let's get these waffles in the iron. And I don't like to make perfect waffles in terms of shape. I like them to be misshapen just because then they look like they're homemade. All right, so we're gonna let those cook. All right, so I think this fried chicken is done. So let's get these out. Yeah, nice and crispy. So we're gonna let the excess oil drain off here, and while they're just sitting there, just put a little salt on top, while they're still warm, and the hot oil will sort of help the salt adhere. All right, we got our fried chicken ready to go. Now all we need is some waffles. Yeah, beautiful. And you see how they're not perfectly shaped? I kind of love that. Just gives it that like very homemade look, you know? And then we can take some of our chicken. I mean, this is a pretty simple presentation. And then a little bit of honey. And a little bit of hot sauce. A little salt and pepper. All right, let's give it a try. So good. You can taste the tanginess of the buttermilk. So you have the crispiness on the outside, the tender, light and fluffy waffle on the inside. I think the buttermilk has a lot to do with that. And then you have the crispy fried chicken with lots of flavor. And to me, this is actually one of the most perfect dishes in America, period. Man, we got a lot of buttermilk today.
So my friends are coming for breakfast. I love to do breakfast because it's not the traditional Saturday night dinner, which is such a major deal. Most of the things I've done the night before, which is great, but the main centerpiece of the meal is a potato basil frittata. So in the pan here, I've cooked about 2 cups of boiling potatoes. They're the firm, round ones rather than the baking potatoes. And I peeled them and just cooked them in a little butter for about 10 or 15 minutes until they're really just tender and browned. And they should be perfect right now. Now I'm going to make the basis of it, which is this gorgeous omelet all mixed together. I'm going to start with, just like an omelet, 8 eggs. And I actually find that you can use whatever's left over from dinner. If you have chicken and broccoli the night before, it makes a delicious frittata. Counting. 1 more. I'm gonna just scramble them a little bit. And then we're gonna add lots of great flavorings. About 15 ounces of ricotta, which is 1 whole small container. And then 3/4 of a pound of Gruyere cheese. Gruyère's it's wonderful, like Swiss cheese. I know, it's eggs, cheese, and butter. It's delicious. How bad can that be? And then a little bit of butter, the last major food group. I'm not suggesting you eat this every day, but once in a while for a treat, it's wonderful. And then basil. I think basil is just such a great flavoring. So I'm going to just take the leaves off the stems and chop them very roughly. I love the smell of fresh basil. And then the last 2 ingredients are 1/3 of a cup of flour to give it a little substance, and 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking powder to make it rise. Wait till you see this when it comes out of the oven. It's all puffed and golden and brown. It's really a showstopper. And it's this easy to make. So, I'm gonna stir this all together. Make sure it's nicely blended. Cheeses and the basil and eggs. And that's it. I'm just gonna pour this right over the potato. And then this whole thing goes in the oven. So instead of making individual omelets for everybody, I have 1 big omelet and we're all gonna share it. So it goes in the oven at 350 degrees for about 50 minutes to an hour, and it's gonna be puffed and golden and delicious. And just in case you're all still hungry, I have a potato basil frittata.
What's in this, Ina?
It's potatoes and basil and Gruyere and ricotta, and it's beautiful. Devin.
Ricotta?
There are a lot of voices coming from over here.
It's
Hot, hot, hot.
Oh, fantastic.
Thank you. I think
Welcome back, everybody. We are making a very healthy brunch. And so we're gonna make 3 different versions of an avocado toast. I'm gonna start by making the avocado base, just a few ingredients, some avocados, some scallions, lime juice, cilantro, and then we can pump up the flavor and the creativity with lots of different combinations of ingredients. First of all, let's make the avocado base. My daughter just called me last week and said, Dad, I'm in a guacamole contest. So I sent her my guacamole recipe, and I didn't hear from her. And Like 2 days later, I was like, did you ever enter that contest? She was like, yeah. We didn't win. And she was like so distraught. I don't know, I guess somebody crushed me. Okay, a little squeeze of lime. So I'm gonna add some green onions to this. I love the flavor of green onions. I love the pungency of it all. I want those bold flavors. Cilantro, some salt and pepper. If you notice, I'm just going to kind of mix it once or crush it one time because we want that nice chunky texture. That's just my preference. I was the kid that when you were picking the peanut butter, I was always crunchy, always. So that's good. Let's make some toast. All right, we're gonna start making our egg salad for our first avocado toast. I have some hard-boiled eggs here. I'm gonna grate the eggs. You can actually chop them if you want, but if you just use the cheese grater, it goes really quickly, and I actually like the texture of it that way. We're gonna add some Dijon mustard and some creme fraiche and some shallots. So Dijon's a little spicy, the creme fraiche is nice and creamy, a little bit tart, and the shallot's gonna give it a little bit of crunch. A little salt and pepper. A little bit of fresh dill. It's got such great flavor. It's one of the things I like about like Eastern European food and Greek food. Just gonna mix this up. I'm gonna use the pumpernickel for this, which has a little molasses in there. Just lightly brush the olive oil on top. I'm gonna broil our pumpernickel. Now you can toast your bread in lots of different ways. I'm actually using my broiler. You can grill your bread outside on a grill or in a grill pan, or you can actually just put it in a toaster. Okay. I'm gonna put the rest of the toast in the broiler as we make our first avocado toast. Okay, we can start the avocado toast parade. And what I like to do is just put a very thin layer of avocado. Think of it almost like butter. Then I'm gonna take a little bit of radicchio. You'll see it in lots of Italian and Mediterranean cuisine. This is gonna give it a little bit of that peppery flavor. And then we take some of our egg salad. So pretty. And then I'm just gonna put a little bit of dill right on top of the egg salad. And it really looks beautiful on that pumpernickel bread, too. So this is gonna be smoked salmon, a little bit of dill with the avocado. So again, very thin layer of the avocado, and then a little bit of smoked salmon. So you have like thin slices of smoked salmon, and you just kind of let it drop onto the avocado. Don't push it down. Paper thin slices. I'm gonna add a little bit of creme fraiche right on top of this as well. Avocado, smoked salmon, and dill. And we have one more to do. Who knew avocado toast could be so much fun, right? We're just gonna take some Fresno chili, looks like a red jalapeno. Just drop some chilies right on top. A little bit of lime zest. And then a little bit of extra cilantro. That's what you wanna hear. You wanna hear that crunch. There it is, the parade of avocado toast. It's like an avocado toast tasting. Let's start with the egg salad. I taste the eggs, the avocado, and the dill right away. And the pumpernickel bread has a lot of its own flavor. I love that combination, and to me, I could eat that all day long. Let's move on to the smoked salmon. Avocados and salmon, perfect combination. They go well together. They always have been really good partners in lots of different ways. And so why not with avocado toast? And then I like a little heat in my food. I like a little heat in my life. So some avocado toast with some chilies and lime. That will wake you up for brunch. Whoa, they're hot. Now we're gonna move on to some pancakes that are gonna be inspired by your favorite cinnamon bun. So now I'm gonna start by making the cinnamon sugar swirl. We started with some brown butter, and I'm gonna add about a half a cup of dark brown sugar. and then a couple of teaspoons of cinnamon. Whisk this together. This is what we're gonna actually pipe into our pancakes when we put them in the pan. I'm gonna add about a quarter cup of water. It's gonna get a little thick, a little syrupy, and the cinnamon is cooking. It smells great here. I wanna keep stirring it because I don't want the cinnamon to clump up, or the sugar. And a couple of tablespoons of cream. And you really have to let this cool to use it. Smells good though. Okay, so we have a little bit of warm maple syrup. I'm gonna pour it right over some softened cream cheese. This is gonna create our cream cheese glaze or frosting, basically what you get on top of a cinnamon bun. And this you wanna whisk pretty vigorously so it gets nice and smooth. Okay, let's make some pancakes. Let's start with 1½ cups of all-purpose flour. You know, I always have my recipes written down for batters and doughs, but you don't have to write them down, because all you need to do is go to foodnetwork.com/brunch, and the recipes are right there for you. 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and a ½ teaspoon of baking soda, 3 tablespoons of sugar, a good pinch of salt. Mix these together, and then we're gonna get to our wet ingredients. A couple of eggs. One and a half cups of buttermilk. You could use regular milk, but I love the flavor of buttermilk, and also I think buttermilk makes for a more tender pancake. A little bit of vanilla extract. 3 tablespoons of melted butter. The melted butter is gonna help make the pancakes a little golden brown on the outside. Now we're just going to fold the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients just until it forms a batter. Don't want to overmix them. Pancakes make me very happy. Such a good thing. Who doesn't like pancakes? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get my brown sugar and cinnamon mixture and put it into a pastry bag so that when I put my pancakes into the pan, I can actually swirl it right into the middle of the pancake. So you can see it's kind of thickened up as it's cooled. Lots of delicious goodness in here. Cinnamon, brown butter, brown sugar, and a little cream. Okay. Let's start making some pancakes. I'm gonna get some butter going in my pan. So we're gonna put some pancake batter right into the pan. And I'm gonna spread a little bit. Those cook for a second. I'm gonna take our cinnamon and brown sugar swirl and just swirl it right into the middle. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna let the pancakes cook on one side, get them nice and crusty, and then we'll flip them over really quickly on the swirl side down, just to kind of cook the top of it. But for the most part, you're gonna cook them on one side, say like 80% on one side, flip them over for another 20% of the time, and then we'll be done. I slowed down the heat a little bit so that they actually cook through without getting too brown on the bottom side. At the same time, we don't want it to get too crusty here. Here we go, ready? Count to 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They're beautiful. It's almost like you kind of slice the pancake in half and you reveal the cinnamon right there. I'm gonna chop some pecans, some toasted pecans. And we're gonna take our maple and cream cheese glaze or sauce. And then a few of the chopped pecans. And let's get at it. You know, it really tastes like one of those glazed cinnamon buns with the cream cheese and the maple glaze on top of the bun itself. We have the cinnamon and the brown sugar running through that swirl. Such a cool idea.
After getting up at the crack of dawn and working all morning, there is nothing like a home-cooked breakfast served off the back of a pickup truck. To go with the biscuits I've got in the oven, I'm making a big batch of sausage gravy. Biscuits and gravy is a cowboy favorite. It's pretty much in their DNA. Everybody absolutely loves it. All right, I've got 2 pounds of breakfast sausage, and I just tore it into small pieces, threw it in a big skillet, and I'm just browning it up, and I'll use this to make the gravy. This gravy is so wonderful. It's really creamy and really thick, and it has little chunks of sausage all throughout. So, so good. So now I'll sprinkle in a little flour. I'll start with about 1/3 cup, and I'm just gonna make the gravy right on the top of the sausage. A lot of times when I make sausage gravy, I'll fry patties of sausage, take it out of the skillet, and then use the grease to make the gravy. But I love this method because you just keep it all in the skillet. It's a lot less work. Okay, now I'll stir this in. I want the flour just to completely coat the sausage, sort of becomes one, and I'll stir it around. It's always been a little difficult for me to give an exact recipe for gravy because there's so much eyeballing that's required. I just sort of look at it, and if it seems like it needs a little more flour, I just sprinkle it in. Okay, this looks perfect. The flour has pretty much disappeared into the sausage. So I'll grab the milk. I'm using whole milk just to make it extra rich and creamy. I'm gonna start with a good 5 or 6 cups. I used quite a bit of flour, so it's gonna thicken up. Stir it around. Now I'm gonna turn up the heat a little bit and let this start bubbling away. I really predict not a drop of this is gonna be left. The gravy is gorgeously thick. It looks just perfect, so I'm gonna season it up. I'll just add a little bit of salt. I don't want to add too much until I have a chance to taste it. Plenty of black pepper. There's a lot of pepper in this meal. And then just a little bit of seasoned salt to give it extra flavor. Now I'll stir that around. It looks unbelievably wonderful. I could eat it by the spoonful. I'm making a tater tot casserole for tomorrow. It is so wonderful. It's an all-in-one main course. It's got a great shortcut ingredient, and it's make ahead. Check, check, and check. I'm gonna assemble the casserole today and bake it tomorrow. I'm just browning some breakfast sausage with some finely diced onion. I'm gonna let the sausage cook all the way through, and while it does, I'm gonna grab that shortcut ingredient. Frozen tater tots. So easy. All I need to do is get them into a buttered baking dish. This perfect layer of tater tots is gonna get topped with the brown sausage and onions. And it's fine that this is hot. It's gonna have a chance to cool down before I add the other ingredients. Once the casserole bakes, those tater tots just turn into potatoes. You would never know they were frozen. Okay, that is all the sausage. Now I'll start working on the egg mixture. This casserole has a lot of cheese, so I'm gonna grate up some cheddar and some Monterey Jack. It's probably the cheese combination that I use the most in my kitchen. Okay, that's enough cheddar. I'll start grating the pepper jack. Love pepper jack cheese, it's so creamy and I love the spice. Okay, that's it for the cheese. Get it out of here. I've got 4 eggs that I cracked into the pitcher, and I'll add a cup of milk. It's whole milk just to make the whole thing a little more rich. And speaking of rich, a little bit of half and half, just about half a cup or so. Now the sausage is really flavorful and plenty salty, but I'm gonna add just a little bit of seasoned salt, about a 1/4 teaspoon. And for some spice, a little cayenne pepper. Really simple. And then I'll whisk this together. Okay, that is nice and mixed. So I'll add some green and red bell pepper. I seeded it and pulled out the membranes, and then I diced them really fine. Okay, the last thing to add to the egg mixture is half of this cheese. The other half is gonna go on top of the casserole. I'll give it a quick stir. And then this beautiful concoction gets poured over the sausage, which is cool by now. And look at all that chunky wonderfulness. Make sure it's all even. And then the rest of this cheese goes on top. This is a cheesy, cheesy dish. Now I've just got to cover it with foil, stash it in the fridge overnight, and tomorrow when it comes to baking and serving, well, that's going to be a cinch. I'll get the casserole into the oven at 350 degrees for 25 minutes. Then I'll take the foil off and bake it for another 20 minutes. Then when it's hot and bubbling, I'll get it out and onto the counter. And everyone will have a lovely, hearty helping. Oh boy, check out all the tater tots and sausagey, oniony, eggy cheesiness. Fantastic.